Good evening and welcome to the February 2024 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite Mark Scafidi from our Public Works Department to come lead us in the pledge. If everyone can please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mark. Next item on our agenda is reflection. I'd like to call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you all very much. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes, and tonight we have 3 sets of minutes before us for the council to approve. The first is, let me just pull up that cover sheet. The first is from the regular session on January 16. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries unanimously. Next, we have the minutes from the regular session on Monday, February 5th. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. And,
I'm going to abstain. I was
Okay.
on military duty and was unable to attend.
okay, so that carries 4-0 with 1 abstention, Councilmember Wu. And last, we have the minutes from the work session on February 12th. But wait, before we do that, Leah, which was the set of minutes that had the amendment?
The first one.
The first one.
With the dates, okay. We didn't need to specify that date, okay, cool. Forgive me on that one. So we have the minutes from the work session on Monday, February 12th. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 5-0. Next on our agenda is appointments, and we have a couple of appointments and 1 reappointment before us. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the resolution confirming appointments and reappointment confirming appointments and a reappointment to the Police Advisory Committee, Senior Advisory Committee, and Transportation Committee, to a 2-year term to the Police Advisory Committee, David Winter, to a 2-year term on the Transportation Committee, Bernie Locasio, and to a 2-year term on the Senior Advisory Committee, Jean Dinwiddie.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And I think we have Bernie in the audience. Is anybody else whose name we just read in the audience? Okay, well, let's give Bernie a round of applause. Serving on one of our committees is a great way to get involved in the city and contribute meaningfully to the business of the city and learn how stuff works and meet like-minded people. I can't recommend it enough. We have a couple dozen different committees and commissions, and any resident, or some of them are open to people who don't even live in the city. If you're interested, you should take a look. They're really great. Okay, next we have presentations, and for the first one, we have an honor for our city attorney, Lynn Board, and I'm going to invite everybody here at the dais to join me down at the podium. Yes, surround Lynn. So this is, just as a matter of background, this is not Lynn Board's last meeting at the dais with us, but it is her final meeting officially as an employee of the city of Gaithersburg. As you in the audience and people watching may know, Lynn is retiring as our city attorney and moving to private firm Levan Ruff. And as it will take roughly another month or 2 for the city council and I to recruit and hire Lynn's replacement, we'll probably have her here with us in a contract capacity
at least a few more times, but we're treating tonight as the special one because it's her last as an actual employee of the city of Gaithersburg. This is meaningful to me. I hope I'm going to make it through this, but before 2008, the city of Gaithersburg did not have a full-time city attorney. We used to have contract attorneys for many years. And it was during my first year on the city council, I was originally elected in 2007, when we decided to change that. And Lynn's hiring was not only one of the first big decisions that I got to help make, but it turned out to be one of the most consequential. Over the years, mostly through involvement in Maryland Municipal League, I've had a chance to observe and work with a number of municipal attorneys throughout the state of Maryland. And I've developed a sense of what I think makes a great city attorney. It's a combination of a lot of skill sets, a broad legal background, contracts, employment law, land use, legislation, litigation, among other areas. The ability to communicate clearly with non-lawyers and with the public, the ability to hire and manage staff and to work effectively with others. Lynn Board is all of the above, and quite simply the best municipal attorney I've ever seen. Her advice to our staff and to us elected leaders has been unfailingly prudent. Her ability to communicate complex topics in a way we can all easily understand has been extraordinary. She has built the city's legal department into what it is today. A wonderful team of knowledgeable, talented, and dedicated people. Her record in the courtroom reminds me of Joe Gibbs' record in the Super Bowl, which was pretty good for those football fans. I remember just a few years into her tenure during one of her annual performance reviews, our former mayor, Sidney Katz, pulling me aside and asking, how many ways can you tell someone they walk on water? Lynn has had us wrestling with that question ever since. She has served the city of Gaithersburg with great distinction and set the bar almost impossibly high for those who will serve this role in the future. On top of all that, on a personal note, over all this time, Lynn has become quite a good friend of mine. And as a lot of you know, for many years on Fall Friday nights, you find Lynn and me in the stands of Quince Orchard football games. And I hope and expect that tradition to continue. So for that reason, it gives me extra special pleasure. And I know it gives our council and our city manager, it's bittersweet, but it's a pleasure to recognize somebody like Lynn Board. And here we have the embodiment of that recognition. Our certificate for Lynn Board in honor of more than 15 years of dedicated service and commitment to the city of Gaithersburg and its residents, and an appreciation of outstanding contributions to the office of the city attorney and other departments throughout the city. Congratulations and best wishes upon your retirement, presented with heartfelt gratitude and signed by me. Let's give Lynn a great big round of applause. Picture. Let's do a picture. I'll hold this with you. Come over here so you could be seen too. Okay, please, if you want to say a few words.
So I think Judge stole some of my thunder and talked about many of the things I was going to talk about as well, so I'll try to be a little bit shorter. I started work for the city on a part-time basis in February of 2008, and I'm ending on a part-time basis this evening. And as Judge said, even though tonight is my last formal mayor and council meeting as an employee, you will see me over the next couple months on a contract basis as I transition or help the city transition to a new city attorney. I am very proud of the work that my office has done over the past 16 years. One of the things I'm most proud about is our litigation record. It's one of those things that's behind the scenes, most people never hear about, never see, and that's a good thing. That means they're not making big headlines with big judgments. We've been highly, highly successful during my tenure, And I think that that's a testament to my staff and how we work so closely with the city staff to resolve issues at the lowest level and not have to resort to the courts in order to be able to do that. So speaking of staff, the next city attorney is going to inherit a great office of people. I've been blessed to work with professionals and a very tight-knit group of individuals with Frank, Eric, Wes, and Lauren. They are hardworking and have done an exceptional job for the city. Sorry. I did bring tissues this evening. I just didn't bring them down with me. Let's see. Wes served the city for over 23 years and just recently retired from the city. Lauren was with me from day one. Most people don't know this, but when I started with the city, they said you can hire an administrative person. And I said, I have one. Can I bring her with me? So she's been with the city also for over 15 years and has worked with me for, I think since she was a baby. For over 20 years, she's worked with me. And Frank just celebrated his 10-year anniversary with the city. Of course, Eric is the newbie, only here 2 years, excuse me. But I especially want to recognize Frank Johnson this evening. He's also another one who works quietly behind the scenes, but truly professional. And I know that the staff here love him for all that he does for you all. I could not have done my job without him working in the backgrounds to handle so much of the day-to-day activities that go on in our office. One of the great things I loved about working from the city is all the boards, commissions, and committees, and thank you for your service and joining. It's really awesome the way that our residents come together and they work to serve the city. And I have always found in working with those individuals, they were always welcoming, but also focused on moving the city forward. And lastly, I feel a little odd with my back to you all. I want to thank the Mayor and Council for your collegial approach to governance and your supportive staff. For those of us who've worked in other municipalities and other jurisdictions, which Denise can attest to, many of those civility is not a priority or practice as it is here. We so appreciate the way that you all conduct yourselves and the fact you are so supportive of the staff. I will miss you all. But I'm sure I will see you at municipal functions and football games in the future. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to work with you. Thank you.
All right, back to work. Okay, next item on our agenda is an update on the Commission on Common Ownership Communities, or CCOC. Kevin Roman, come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I begin, I wanted to thank Lynn Board for all her guidance in keeping neighborhood services straight over the years. Without your guidance, we would be lost.
Which has been a challenge.
I'm sorry?
So which has been a challenge.
Yes. But we appreciate all your guidance over the years. We thank you for that. So tonight I'm joined by Terry Anderson, who is the chair of the Commission on Common Ownership Communities,
Have a seat, guys.
also known as the CCOC, and Ramon Espen, who is the manager of Montgomery County's Office of Common Ownership Communities. Terry and Ramon will be highlighting the use and participation of city common ownership communities in the CCOC to include information on annual registrations, board of director training, case updates, and some new initiatives. In the way of background, the city opted into the CCOC back in 2021 after many meetings with the mayor and council. They voted to amend Chapter 2-6 of the City Code entitled Exemptions from Montgomery County Legislation and Regulations within the City to include Chapter 10B of the Montgomery County Code entitled common ownership communities. The amended ordinance required all common ownership communities within the city of Gaithersburg to participate by July 1st of 2022, that being almost 20 months ago. So for our first update on the CCOC, I'll turn it over to Terry and Ramon to see how things are progressing.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Kelvin. And by the way, I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge not only Terry, she's our commission chair, but we also have a new commissioner here, Commissioner Fernandez, who's actually from the city of Gaithersburg, that just recently joined the commission
Welcome.
a month ago. Together next to her is also Ife Fabayo, who's an investigator with the Office of Common Ownership Communities. So we come here to provide a brief presentation. So as I was said earlier, so I've been with the Office of Common Ownership Communities now for actually a year, February. So it's been an amazing experience to work for the county and to work for this particular office. It's a very unique operation. It's a very unique agency across the state, across the U.S. So I'm actually happy to be in the role that I'm in, and I'm actually excited to work with the commission that we have in place. So I want to start off with just a brief overview of the commission. I'm pretty sure most of you guys know it, and then just kind of leading into city specific statistics here. So as you all are aware, the Office of Common Ownership Communities provides a lot of resources and services to homeowners associations, homeowners within homeowners associations, tenants within homeowners associations, residents, board members, and even management, professional management companies and/or agents that work within community associations. The commission's goal is to improve the quality of life in communities. It's to also strengthen the self-governing community structure, and also to enhance the value of residential property within community associations. So if we look at those three core objectives of the Commission on Common Ownership, that's one of our main focus as we work together with the commission. So the commission provides a lot of information. The commission is made out of 15 volunteers. They're all volunteers appointed by the county executive and confirmed by the county council. 8 of those volunteers are homeowners, are lot owners, residential owners, with no significant professional background in common ownership communities. The remaining 7 do bring that professional common ownership experience, such as real estate attorneys, managers, any particular professional that does business or engages business with the community association industry. The commission is appointed once a year, generally around this time of the year, January, February. So we just had our annual appointments by the committee. Commissioners are also required to be trained as part of being appointed onto the commission. So just like we require mandatory training for the governing bodies of common ownership communities, commissioners also have to go through a legal training, a similar community governance fundamental training, along many other trainings that will lead them to be prepared to be part of an administrative hearing panel. The county also has dedicated county staffing to assist the commission. So I, together with 3 investigators, 1 office service coordinator, 2 contractors, and 1 county attorney, are dedicated staff to assist the commission with their day-to-day affairs, primarily managing the administrative tasks of the commission. We also have a group of non-appointed volunteers, which we classify as panel chairs. Panel chairs lead the administrative hearing panels. They are a different group of volunteers with unique expertise, primarily in the legal expertise, together with common ownership expertise, that brings that value of knowledge to the commission as part of this panel chair group of volunteers. We currently have a group of 6 volunteers. The commission meets once a month. They meet on the first Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. They meet virtually, so it's open. It's a public meeting, so it's open to anyone that's interested in attending these meetings. And then some of our communication tools is we actually have a website. We have a lot of great resources on the website, and we've started issuing monthly publications with just targeted article information that's geared for common ownership communities. So those are our two main sources of communication. I want to jump into the core objectives, as I said earlier. So the core objectives are threefold: education, legislation, and the dispute resolution. Starting with the education, as I said earlier, the commission is governed by Montgomery County Code, Chapter 10B. Chapter 10B requires that education be provided by the commission to the governing bodies of common ownership communities, which we also use the acronym CCOCs. Training is mandatory for governing bodies. We offer training in two formats, actually three. An online 24/7 format that it's flexible, it's easy, it's at that individual's own time. They create an account with the county and they undergo the online training course. It's a set of videos with answers. At the end, it does take about 3 or 4 hours. At the end, they will receive an automated certificate of completion. The second one is, together with my commission chair, we do webinar presentations, so PowerPoint presentations, and we do them on the weekends. We do them currently twice a month, second Saturday of the month, and fourth Sunday of the month, normally at 9:00 a.m. That is an additional supplemental means of training. It's more interactive. Obviously, we are presenting the materials, and it allows for more interactive questions and answers. And the last one is trainings at host communities. Communities will reach out to us from time to time and request that this board training be brought to their facility or their location. Doesn't happen very often. That's one of the things that we are working on, getting that information out and working with the host communities to bring the material out to the associations. I think the most recent one we did was in October.
Leisure
it was
World.
with Leisure World. So Leisure World has been an active participant making this request on an annual basis. That's in education in a nutshell. I want to take your entire meeting here. I just want to summarize. Legislation is a big one, right? So the commission is also tasked to identify areas where legislation could be amended to improve and enhance based on what we're seeing and what the community is bringing to our attention. As a matter of fact, in July 1st of 2023, last year, the code was amended. And it was amended to include a lot of improvements to the code. Now, I'm just going to touch on some of the improvements, but all these amendments are on our website here. So one of the improvements were the training. So we believe strongly that if the training is there, that people receive the training, they will minimize the disputes amongst the community associations. It used to be a one and done. If you took it 5 years ago, 7 years ago, that was the requirement. So unless you did it, we have your information, you have to retake it. The new amendment now requires that it be renewed every 3 years. So it does expire now every 3 years. So for homeowners that have not taken, or board members have not taken this course within the last 3 years, they no longer have an active training certificate, and that is a requirement.
So, Ramon,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Go for it.
but my understanding, like, it's great to have all this background again. We appreciate that, but my understanding is we were supposed to get an update on Gaithersburg cases. What's the status, what's the status of the interaction between CCOC and common ownership communities in the city of Gaithersburg?
Good question. So for the city of Gaithersburg, the city of Gaithersburg was required to begin participation on July 1st of 2022. So data is here from July 1st, 2022 forward. So since that time, there has been 15 cases filed within the city of Gaithersburg common ownership communities. The bulk of those cases were filed in 2022 and 2023. I don't have the data right now for 2024, but in 2022 we had 7 cases that were filed. In 2023 we had 5 cases that were filed. The remaining cases were filed prior to 2022. I can tell you that from those 15 cases, what we have seen and identified is that most of those cases, actually 12 of those cases, were filed by an individual homeowner against their association. Whereas 3 of those 15 were filed by the association against that individual homeowner. Out of those 15 cases, 11 cases were closed or have been closed. 4 cases are still in the queue, are in the proceedings, so they're pending the next proceeding or status there. The majority of the cases that make out of this 15 cases have to do with improper elections and/or fail to conduct meetings as required, or issues with the meeting. So it has to do with the governance of that community association. Some of the other cases that are not related to improper elections or meetings have to do with common area disputes, architectural disputes, maintenance disputes, and/or fees, assessment fees dispute. That's on the case related matters. So as I mentioned earlier, we also have the board training certificates. We were able to identify that in the city of Gaithersburg, 315 individuals have active board training certificates. We're still, I can't give you the count of board members for the.
But do we have a sense of how many of our associations are represented there, or?
I would say, I have the data. I hate to throw a number to you, Mayor, but
Okay.
we do have that data. I don't have that
You can get that to
verified
us.
data, but I can definitely get that piece of information from you. Just want to give you some just summary numbers, and I'll tell you, those 315 individuals, out of 2,400 countywide active training certificates, 315 of those are from the city of Gaithersburg. Registration was brought up earlier, so registration is on an annual basis. Let me back up a little bit. You have on July 1st, 2022, every common ownership communities within the city of Gaithersburg, when they opted in, is required to file an initial application. An initial application just populates your data in our database, in our system. After that, it becomes a renewal application. The initial application is a paper application. Everyone has to submit it. The renewal applications are done through an online portal. So COCs can have ease of access to update their information and pay for that annual renewal registration. From our current data, we still have 17 condominiums within the city of Gaithersburg that have never registered with the county. We have 13 HOAs that have also never registered with the county since 2022. We have a total of 4 that are just unregistered. That means that they have failed to renew. That means they have submitted their initial one, but they have failed to renew. And it may be their most recent renewal or a few fiscal year renewals. But it's only 4 out of those HOAs. The annual registration fee for the city of Gaithersburg is still $5 per unit per association, and that will remain the same. The new fee, whatever the fee is at that given time, will take place on July 1st, 2025. So for this 2024, it will still remain $5. Come July 2025, whatever the fees are for all county associations, will be impacted at that given time. I've given you the summary that I have
That's
for
great.
you today, Mayor and council members here. I can probably give you a lot more level detail as requested or as needed, but I think this gives you a synopsis of where we are. And a lot of this case information here, it's unfortunate, it doesn't capture a lot of the stuff that doesn't go into the system, which my team does a great job, and they all of these cases initiate as a general inquiry. And a lot of the times we can address by providing technical expertise and technical guidance to the common ownership communities and the individual homeowner without it ever actually being a complaint file.
Jim, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ramon, how many of the 11 cases that have been closed resulted in an overturning of the decision that had been made?
Overturning of a decision that has been made?
Yeah, so if depending on, either side filing with the CCOC, how many actually changed what had been done?
So let me look at my spreadsheet here and I'll tell you what my case status site.
And if you don't have it, you can get us that information too.
So, I thought I had my stuff in order here.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, and I have the information. So I believe what you're trying, I believe what your question is for those that have been closed, which ones actually took action based on the settlement or the resolution that came out of it, is that correct?
Exactly.
Or
So
the
if-
ruling that came out of it?
Right, so if it was an improper election, somebody complained, and you're right, that was an improper election, and you have to do something different.
So I would tell you, and I'm trying to find my form here, and I don't think I brought it here today, that the majority of the cases that have been resolved, a nominal amount have been due to a ruling by the CCOC. That means that it's gone through the entirety of the process up to a hearing panel, and a hearing panel ruling on that decision. I believe, I can get you that hard data, but I believe that number from those 11 cases is probably 1 or 2 at max. The other remaining closed cases have been settled prior to an actual ruling, either through mediation, either through discussions amongst the party, leading to a hearing, but never really got to the hearing stages.
Well, and that's, and either way, but whether it was a mediation or a hearing, a mediation could still result in a change. What I'm trying to ascertain up here is the value that it's bringing to our residents, having opted in as the city. And, it could be of the 11, and I'm just going to throw a number out, if half of them, the result was still the same, like somebody brought a complaint, but it wasn't valid, or, the original decision of the association remained, then it would be a much, I'm looking for change, I guess, is what I'm trying to see here. How much did this commission for the residents of Gaithersburg, how much did it help? Because if it was, 20 and only 2 things changed, has it really done anything for us? Do you know how long did the city, maybe my colleagues who have been on the council longer than I know, but how long was the term that the city opted into participation? Is it perpetual, or is it?
I think it's perpetual.
That's not a pilot.
There's no
It's-
sunset.
It was not, okay, thank you.
That could be a Lynn question.
Yeah. Get those Lynn questions in while I still can.
Yeah.
So the changes, in general terms, city included, but just in county, the change is really at the level of those parties that brought it to our attention, right? Is what they wanted to see as assistance and what they wanted to see as the resolution or the change. In some scenarios, 100%, they bring in valid complaints that go through a due exercise. When it gets to the point where they're reviewing the facts of the case and they're ruling on the case, it shows, or it allows the opportunity to rectify some of the issues that have been brought to their attention on the association level or on the individual homeowners level by a neutral body, right? Because initially what you see coming in is just they're not seeing eye to eye. So we measured some of the change just based on the feedback and the information that we're seeing in conjunction to what we're seeing on the cases, right? Because if we're seeing that they can actually resolve it before actually going to an administrative hearing panel, for me as the manager, that says a lot. It tells me that they actually have the desire to work things out. There are scenarios where they don't have the desire to work it out, and they're bumping heads throughout the entire process, but those are very few to some. It does exist, but there are very few to them, and those will eventually end up at the end of this process with a hard ruling that's going to have one or the other party unsatisfied.
Right. Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ramon, for your presentation and your information. What's the commission's response to those communities that have never opted in or haven't renewed in an appropriate amount of time?
Good question. So we have a licensing and registration unit within the department, which is separate, believe it or not, from the Office of Common Ownership, but we do talk. They are tasked with locating, identifying, and communicating with the common ownership communities, letting them know what they need to do to bring it into compliance. This is where some of the challenges exist. Some of the information we have for the common ownership communities, either we're unable to reach anybody or we're getting no response from them. So it's really taking additional proactive steps and proactive approach and research to get their awareness, just get their attention for them to comply. We brought on board, this office brought on board a contractor and maybe within the last 6 months, just to focus on doing those personal touches with the common ownership communities outside of the formalities of sending out notices of violations, which they're not responding to.
You're knocking on doors.
If you want to call it that.
Jamil.
Just following up on Councilmember McNulty's question, I think it would be helpful for us to get, either on an annual basis or some other way, a summary table of here's the number of actions or things that came before the commission, here's what was requested, and here was the decision or outcome that occurred. No outcome, some settlement where maybe the election didn't get redone, but they changed procedures, right? Or the amended bylaws, or what was the outcome of that? So we can have a more fulsome understanding of the interactions. And I think, can you get that for us? Or is that something that can be put together?
Yes.
Okay.
What we have available, we can get you. I will tell you that one of the things that if we just take the example of the full administrative hearing ruling, this is kind of where the CCOC, for lack of better words, could, and our office could use some improvement, because there's very little follow-up after a ruling is done to determine whether the parties have actually complied with the decision in order. There is a process for the prevailing party to make the CCOC aware that they're not in compliance with it, and then we will initiate the enforcement piece of it. But
That's one step further than when I was, which is great, but just in terms of what has happened, and I understand, if I remember the provision in the code, if the losing party disagrees, they still have a remedy through the courts. Have any of these cases gone further where the non-prevailing party has appealed to the circuit court?
as far as I'm aware, the cases I brought here before you, no. But
Okay.
in general terms, yes, it does happen. Very, very rarely.
Okay, thank you.
Rob Wu.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ramon, for the presentation. I will note that, for all of the good that the CCOC brings to our community, that Ramon's actually an example of somebody who was involved in an HOA and running such a tight ship that the CCOC would not have been necessary in our community. And so we used to work together when I was on the HOA board in my community. Dovetailing on what Jim and Jamil requested, and I wholeheartedly support the need for data. I would also like to see, and this is my request to staff, is, these are individual cases with individual resolutions that may or may not have broader application to how HOAs are run in our city. And so in addition to the helpful data that the CCOC could provide us, and thank you for agreeing to that, I would love to see analysis from staff on lessons learned and how they could be implemented in improving how we do business in the city and our relationships with our common ownership communities. So that would just be an ask of mine.
All right. Neil.
Okay, so first of all, out of the members of council sitting up here, 4 out of 5 of us were officers of HOAs, so I think we all have some interesting background and opinions on this. First of all, I have to say I was hoping that we'd see a lot more data, so I'm going to ask you to come back with more. Do you track the
day-to-day inquiries of, that you alluded to in your discussion. In other words, somebody calls up, they need help, your staff helps them. Do you have some sort of tracking system so that, I mean,
Yes.
so if you could come back and let us know what level of activity, particularly from the citizens and HOAs and whatever in Gaithersburg, that would be helpful as well. You told us how many of these organizations are not participating. How many are? How many dues-paying HOAs and condo associations in Gaithersburg have signed up and done what they're supposed to do?
I believe the list we got from the city of Gaithersburg a few years ago included 113 common ownership communities.
Okay, and
That's accurate.
Okay.
at $5 a unit, do you know offhand how much we're paying for all this?
I don't, I can figure that out for you. I don't have it here for you today.
Okay.
Each common ownership community will vary on the
Yeah,
amount
of course, they're all
doing.
different.
Yeah, yeah.
Some are itty bitty and some are Kentlands and Lakelands, right? Yeah, I mean, I thought I think my expectation of this session tonight was going to be that you were going to share a lot more data with us, so I think I may at least suggest that we invite you back with some lovely PowerPoints or whatever, or spreadsheets or data that you can share with us, because, frankly, I kind of went into this program kicking and screaming in the beginning, because, and it may be an anomaly, but my HOA that I was part of is pretty well run and had not that many disputes. We used a separate resource, the Community Associations Institute, which is based in Northern Virginia, which has tons of training material. We bought a lot of their books and put them in our library. And, I felt that what your organization did felt kind of duplicative of that. Of course, a lot of the smaller associations probably didn't take advantage of that. So I'd really like to understand the value that is being brought to the community to make sure that, that what we've opted into is providing value for our citizens and our HOAs. I don't want to give you a real hard time, but I'd like to see, I'd like to see
Absolutely.
data. I appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask?
Yeah,
just
go
one
ahead.
more follow-up?
Absolutely.
Just because Councilmember Harris brought up training, who creates the training materials that are offered by the CCOC?
The commission.
The commission,
That's
okay.
correct,
And is there and who trains the commission, I guess is my question. As far as being an expert on policy and, is, like, somebody new comes on the commission, how are they brought up to speed? Is it through those materials?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So there is orientation led by both the commission and staff.
Okay.
On information that they have to be familiarized with and trained with in order for them to have the tools and resources to start to participate on the commission.
As well as the county attorney also provides to the new commissioners training.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jamil?
Yeah, my question is maybe more to you, or just a parliamentary question. In terms of, I have like 20 more questions, but that are data-driven questions. So if the folks are going to come back, can we prepare like a question package, give them enough time to pull that together, so we have a very fulsome and comprehensive presentation of the information?
Yes, Kevin Roman, will you be the point person on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, one last thing. Ramon, I don't want to give you too hard of a time because I know the good work you did in my neighborhood
Yes.
once upon a time. So I just want to see the backup that goes along with what
It's
we're
a
doing.
fair
here.
request.
All right.
Councilmember Harris, so I'll be, like I said in the beginning, I'll be happy to come back. I'm here to provide you as much data, and Kevin and I I'll talk about it, whether a presentation was going to, a PowerPoint presentation, just due to my time and my limited resources, I wasn't able, but I was going to be able to do the oral presentation. I'll be happy to come back and give you, and discuss the details of it here.
Perfect. And we'll give you a heads up on
Yeah.
the data we're looking for.
That's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Before we go to the next presentation, I wanted to, you guys are welcome to stay or leave, but I happen to know there's at least one maybe more than one resident who's in the audience who's going to testify after the next presentation, and they may speak about CCOC. So if you want to hear that, hang around, or you could watch the video, but I just want to make you aware.
I'll stick around. I'll let the others make their determination there.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We thank you guys very much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so we're going to move on to our next presentation, and I'm going to invite our Deputy City Manager, Dennis Enslinger, and our friend Seth Adams from MCPS to talk about the new Crown High School.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. And while the presentation team is getting ready to make the presentation, this will be a presentation on an update on the Crown High School site. This is an important project to the community for a number of reasons. One is, the city secured the land for this property in terms of allowing this development to happen, and have worked cooperatively with the school district to build the new high school. They're helping fund it, and we help fund the land behind it. And tonight we have Seth Adams, who's with Montgomery County Public Schools. We have Jasmine McDuffie, who's the architect on the project, and then Sean Lindeman, who's the civil engineer, and they'll kind of give you an overview of the status of the project and what changes were made between the last time they presented this to you and what's going to get built. That's it. Thanks.
Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and Council, to present the updates for the Crown High School project. So this has been many years in the making. We're so close to starting, but we do still have a few hurdles ahead of us as we get close to groundbreaking. Just to give a couple updates, as we've gone through our capital improvements program, this has been a priority project for the Board of Education. Each submission it is prioritized, and each submission we've been looking at tracking the different inflationary pressures that we've seen through the construction industry. The latest round, we have looked at increasing the budget to keep pace with the enrollment that we hope to fill with this particular project. But we are still, as we get closer to the bid dates, we are still tracking and trending to look at opportunities around where we may see cost overruns. Why that's important is that as we go into the CIP season, the Board of Education did make a request, and the county executive's budget reflects a $346 million reduction in the first 4 years of our CIP. The Crown High School project all their expenditures are in those first 4 years. So as we navigate that, we are obviously still paying very close attention to this project, to the bid, and making sure that the numbers fall within where we hope the existing budgets are at. But with that, we are looking at a variety of different opportunities. I know we've had many conversations with city staff around use of the fields, how the city can be a part of that. But I would just say, as we get closer, we're looking at a variety of different approaches of how we can get the project started, and that may include pulling out different scope, different aspects of the project in order to get going. We're actually scheduled to present to the Board of Education next Thursday, I believe it is, the 27th. We're going to talk through this particular project around where we're at from a bidding perspective, what are some of the opportunities that we see moving forward. Probably more importantly to the city residents, we're going to talk through the boundary study that's going to be tied to this project. So while there's building a whole high school is important, we obviously have to get started. We have to open up capacity. We're seeing deficits at schools within the city of 700 students, and so this project is vital to solving that capacity. So I just want to say thank you to you all for your support throughout this process. It is, we talk about the city of Gaithersburg in partnership with Montgomery County Public Schools as sort of a model of how municipalities and county agencies should work and operate. Not only in the region, but I think across the nation. And so I do want to just, before we dive into the presentation, just say a big thank you. And as we navigate this challenging CIP process, thank you in advance for your support for this particular project.
Can we use that quote on our website?
Absolutely. I say it every meeting we can with other municipalities. You are the pinnacle of what it means to be a relationship and a partner. As we navigate challenges. So,
Which municipalities are not?
Save that for a different presentation.
There you go, there you go.
But I would say though, as we've gone through this project, the team has, we call it value engineering. We've really looked at every part of this project to make sure that we are bringing best value. Obviously, it's a large high school. There's a lot of amenities that need to come into it, not only just from a community use, but more importantly from a programmatic standpoint. And this team has been very innovative of looking at how to shed costs, how to try to bring this project in under budget with some of the unprecedented inflationary pressures that we've seen. And just to give everyone an idea, we're not just saying inflation. We have seen close to 100%, 200% in some categories since the pandemic. Obviously, from a city perspective, you've probably seen similar things, but the construction industry as a whole has just seen unprecedented growth. We had hoped it would level off. We haven't quite seen it yet. We're obviously optimistic as things advance that it does start to level off, but the team has worked very, very, very hard to try to bring the project within the budget that's been set forth over year after year. So we're very proud of what we're about to present tonight because it doesn't diminish the value that we're going to bring to the students in the community, but it is something that we feel is the most cost-effective, fiscally prudent project that we could come up with for this particular community and for the students. So I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine to walk through the presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Go from there. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting us to share the project and the progress we've made. In terms of the agenda, we want to provide a brief project. Can you see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brief project overview. I'll talk a little bit about where the project's at, show you some site plans, share with you some of the building renderings that we prepared, talk a bit about parking, the forest conservation amendment area, and some retaining wall design. In terms of an overview, the land area that's going to be disturbed is 31.7 acres. The building itself is 358,000 square feet. The student capacity that the school is going to be able to accommodate is 2,219 students. And we're looking at a substantial completion date of August of 2027. Talk about the location.
Sure. So Crown High School is on the it's on the southern side of Fields Road and the west side of Omega Drive. It butts right up to Crown Neighborhood 3, which is shown in green. And as you keep moving west, you end up hitting downtown Crown. Rio and Washingtonia is up to the north. To the east of Crown High School site is Montgomery College. And I'll give you a quick walk around the site. So the building will occupy the northwest corner of the site. There are two vehicular access points. One is to the north, directly across from Washingtonian Boulevard. And then the other one is on Omega Drive, which is right across from the entrance to the Grove 270. The entrance to the north will bring you to the parent drop-off loop, the student parking, and the visitor parking. The entrance on the east will give you access to the staff parking lot and the bus loop. And then the bus loop will also be striped for temporary striping for when the buses are not there for after hours. The stadium is going to be in the northeast of the site. Something that you can't really see on this is only 2 dimensions, but there is a decent amount of slope on this site. The high point is at the entrance on Washingtonian and ends up sloping all the way down towards the forest at the bottom. Something we've done to kind of take advantage of that, the entrance on the north is up on the 2nd floor level, where the bus loop is down on the 1st floor. To get to it, there is a series of steps and walkways just to the east of the building. To the south of the bus loop, we have 4 tennis courts and 3 basketball courts. And then to the south of those, we have the baseball field, the softball field, and the discus throw area. And then south of that is the existing forest, which we're trying to leave intact.
In terms of some exterior views to share with you, this is the main entrance to the school off of the parent drop-off that Sean mentioned. And so the main entrance is highlighted by an entry feature here and a canopy that runs the length of the front door. From this view, you also see the entrance into the performing arts wing of the building here. In terms of some of the materials that we're looking at, 2 different tones of masonry. We're looking at the use of metal panel on the performing arts facade, as well as some accent metal panel within the rough openings of the windows. This is an aerial view if you were at the corner of Omega and Fields Road, giving you a larger view of the building. The main entrance, again, is located centrally in the corner, along with the performance arts entrance. And the building is fully accessible, and one of the things that's really important for us in terms of the site was to make sure that the site was fully accessible. And so we've designed a series of ramps and stairs that Sean alluded to on the building on this side next to the stadium. And this is a better view of that series of ramps and stairs, trying to provide inclusivity and equity in terms of those who are using the ramps and the steps. They converge at the same location. And you can see that grade change that Sean mentioned, the high point being off of Fields Road and that parent drop-off lot, and the lower level at the gym, at the bus loop drop-off, which also has a full-length canopy. And you can see the home bleacher side as well in this view. Another view looking north, and you can see the stadium on the right and the building on the left. Again, a better view of the accessible pathway from the higher elevation at the parent drop-off to the lower elevation at the bus loop. This is the south elevation, looking at the building from that perspective. This is the bus loop, so this is the view that students will see as they come into the site off of Omega. And this is the elevation that you would see off of Morrison Drive, which is the street that borders the school and the neighboring community. And we've particularly tried to keep the scale of the building fairly low on this side to be respectful of those who are living across the street. So this corner here is at a comparable elevation of the house that you can actually see the shadow of the homes across the street. And setting the building back off of Morrison on this side to, again, provide a lot more green space and buffer and to push the higher volume of the building back off of the street. This perspective is taken from Fields Road, looking down Morrison Drive, and so you can see a better view of those townhomes and the scale of the building, which is pretty comparable on this corner. And this is one of the changes we've made in terms of the exterior facade, is really looking at ways, as Seth mentioned, to be really prudent with the dollars of the taxpayers and looking at ways to maintain the visual appearance by looking at more economical ways of cladding the building. And the same, bless you, the same corner in the evening.
All right, as mentioned, there's 2 main parking lots for the site. There is the one on the north, which is for the students and visitors. And then there is the one that is on the east side of the site that is for the staff. Each has roughly 200 parking spaces. And the bus loop is striped for 30 buses, and then with the temporary striping, it adds another 100. So for a total for the site for after hours, you'll have approximately 500 parking spaces with the ADA spaces included. That's roughly around what most of the high schools around the size will have. There are also 50 bike spaces located around the site. There's 20 that are off the parent drop-off loop. There's 20 that are off the bus loop, and then there's also 10 on the Morrison Drive side. So if any kids in the neighborhood are coming from that direction, we anticipate that they can come in on that side. There is also a small parking lot just specifically for baseball and softball, for a couple of spaces, along with an ADA space that someone could get down there pretty easy. The property was part of Crown Neighborhood 3. As part of that, there was a forest conservation easement that was granted for the parcel. It didn't exactly fit our site as best as it could. So we have reworked that, and we are replacing it with a 1-to-1 replacement. So it will be at least the same size as it was previously. So the site has, it's approximately 40 foot of grade change from the entrance at Washingtonian down to the forested area. So we do have a number of retaining walls across the site. Most of them are internal to the site, but there are a few that you will see from the public side. Those I've highlighted in red. So up on Fields Road side, you will have, there's an area where it goes from the second floor down to the first floor. We just need a retaining wall to kind of bridge that gap. That one will be veneered in the same brick as the building, so it'll kind of blend in with the rest of the facade. On the south side, southwest of the building, there is the loading dock. We have put in a screen wall there to block visibility to anything back there. That one will also be clad in the same brick as the building, so it'll almost look like just an extension of the building from the street. And then the bottom corner of the site, where the baseball field is, since there's a lot of grade change and the baseball field needs to be relatively level, there ends up being a retaining wall that gets up to about 10 foot tall at the corner of the property. As you work your way north, it does taper off into nothing. We have one of the things we have added, and it'll be a little bit more visible, I think, on the next slide. We have talked to the neighbor who owns the home that's right, the last one on Crown Park Ave. We did meet with him, kind of talked to him about what he'll end up seeing there. There was some landscaping included in Crown Neighborhood 3. And what we've decided to do is kind of offset that with our own landscaping, so that it'll be kind of like a tiered effect of plantings. We've also added a row of them along the face of the wall as you go up towards Morrison Drive. There's a number of shrubs that vary from 4 to 8 foot tall. The total wall height is about 10 feet, so it should be mostly shielded from those plants. So yeah, this is the plan that it's got an update of the plantings in the bottom corner. It's what we have discussed with the neighbor. It provides 5 landscape trees and shade trees. I did warn him that in the first few years, they're going to be kind of small trees, but I told him to give it 5-10 years and those things will be nice and full, and he seemed pretty pleased with that. The 2 things that we're really trying to accommodate with the rest of the landscaping, we're trying to get a lot of trees around the parking spaces so we can provide some shade for the cars, shade for the asphalt. And then we also have a number of plantings along the west property line to give a little bit of a landscaped buffer between the school and the neighborhood.
So that's pretty much it from the updates on the design. Like I said, we're going through the bidding process now. The goal is to start to break ground the end of this spring or early summer, so that we can obviously transition into 2027 opening. As I also mentioned, on the 27th, we will release this interim superintendent's recommendation on a boundary study. That's the scope. It's not officially the boundary study itself, but it's the scope of which will populate this particular school. So a lot of things happening over the next couple of weeks with this particular project, but we're very glad to be here and answer any questions that you may have. So
Great. Thank you all so much for the presentation. I think it looks great. Boundary studies are always exciting, especially high school ones. I have a few questions. First off, I'll start with parking. I know our staff has requested that there be adequate parking on site so that this doesn't bleed over into the Crown neighborhood or to any of the neighborhoods surrounding. You mentioned we have 2 lots, they're 200 spaces each during school hours. Is that enough? Is that enough at other schools? Like how does that number of spaces stack up?
Sure. So 400 spaces those rival some of the largest lots that we have. So over the years, we've been tasked by the county to the county planning to start to reduce as much as we can, the parking. So we actually have many high schools that are much less parking than this. Obviously, it impacts the student parking ability, obviously not staff, but in this case, we feel that this is on the high end of what we would expect at a high school serving this number of students.
Is it on the high end in the student lot as well, or just when we put it all together?
When you put it all together.
Okay. Because I feel like it's the students, not the staff, that would be, parking. If it's not enough spaces, they're the ones who are going to end up parking in the neighborhood and, sort of exporting the problem to the rest, other parts of the city.
So our administrators, obviously we don't have administration for this particular school. That'll go through a process as we get closer, but I can say our administration, our principals at our schools are very equipped at managing student parking challenges. I think we have, again, we have sites, we have schools that are probably the same amount, if not larger, student capacities with close to half the parking. And it's obviously something that we work very closely with our parent community, with our students, but something that we're very accustomed to managing, as we go through these processes.
Yeah, and I know it's hard to fully engineer. It's hard. It's hard to get exactly right. Omega Drive. There's an issue we're aware of that there's a strip of land that's adjacent to Omega Drive that's not owned by the city. What have you guys, have you interacted with the property owner? Are you sure you're going to have the right to use that for what looks to me like the staff parking entrance?
Sure, that is a great question. That's it's a sliver of property that I don't think many people knew about till we get further into the process here, but it's a 10-foot strip that runs along Omega. We have engaged with the development company. Those negotiations, obviously, I don't think they went as smoothly as we would have hoped. The cost for that particular property that was requested was far exceeding the market value. So we have engaged with the Department of Transportation because it does impact not only the access route, but also impacts the sidewalk, a pedestrian and bicycle path that's been requested by the county. Where we are with them is either they will go through a quick take process or the Board of Education will go through eminent domain process for this particular property. So it will take a little bit of time, but unfortunately, again, those negotiations did not, result in what we would think is a fair market value. So we're going to transition into not necessarily a preferred approach, but an eminent domain approach for this particular piece of property.
Okay. So our staff also has requested that you guys do a comprehensive review of the walking routes to the school. Where does that stand?
So not only has it been a request of staff, we've been working very closely with MCDOT and parking planning. That's obviously a big part of what we do is look at pedestrian access. It is a little challenging. Obviously, we don't know the boundaries, but we obviously do know that there will be students that are in walking distance of this particular site. We're working with the Department of Transportation around extending sidewalks. It's not as simple as just extending it. It's going through and modifying existing forest conservation and a few other features. So we're navigating that with them, and I think that's something that we will be coming back to the city to see what that looks like in terms of how that process would work to make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly. But what I'm saying there is that's a connection point along Omega that would connect sidewalks a little bit further down versus having pedestrians across the street. So we are looking at this from a variety of bicycle and pedestrian paths. That is a high priority. We've been fully embraced Vision Zero of the county. So I believe the comments of the staff are lockstep with what's been asked of the county, of asked for bus. So we do feel it's going to be a very pedestrian safe, bicycle safe site, and we are obviously going to continue to look for ways to improve it as the development continues.
Okay.
One of the updates that we did have on this one as well, so we have traffic signals at both of the school entrances, and we have crosswalks on all 4 directions with the pedestrian push buttons, so all of that will be fully up to Safe Routes to School standards.
Excellent, excellent. And the last subject matter I wanted to touch on was the joint facility agreement. We, from our perspective, have had this on the table for a while, and I'm not sure we feel that MCPS has been as responsive on this point, which we've negotiated with other schools, in particular ones in which we helped acquire the land and dedicated it or deeded it over to MCPS. This is one of those cases. Where does this stand? Because this I can tell you something. We want to deed this thing over to you guys. We want to get this deal done. But this joint facility agreement is for real. Like we need that inked before we're deeding this over. So tell me where it stands.
Sure. So, it is a little different than our middle schools and elementaries. A high school facility, as we've explained to staff, several times, the field use is something that, again, we want to keep our student athletes on campus. Many of our high schools, we have to move students off campus to be able to practice and do other features. We're looking to obviously maximize that. So when you look to maximize that, we're looking at it from a perspective of what hours are available to outside users. In this case, it would be the city. Absolutely, there's no doubt in our mind that there will be an agreement. I think what we're working through right now is 2 things. One, what makes sense, from a use standpoint, and B, as I mentioned, we're working through budget pieces where we're not exactly sure if some of the field amenities that would be part of this joint use agreement would even be constructed in the immediate future. So there's a couple things, there's a couple hurdles that we're trying to navigate, but certainly I think we're at the point where we can come up with a draft agreement, I think subject to change as this development continues. But, I do believe, and I go back to that first statement, that we value the partnership of the city, and it's one that we're going to do everything we can to, enable your use of this particular, not only site, but building. But there's a couple of challenges that we have to navigate in the meantime. But in terms of the deed itself, I would say that is of high interest to us. We were not able to secure a few of the easements that are required to start construction until that deed process is finalized. So, obviously it's of high importance to us to navigate and figure out, not only what a deal look like today, but I think, how we can craft something that can evolve over time to make sense for not only the school, but for the city as this school opens and starts to evolve as we grow into it as well.
Fair enough. I think we both parties here have important things on the table. And I can tell you that the city, and we're not going to get into negotiating here, but the city will be very reasonable about an understanding of this. It's your facility first, and whatever. I'm sure we're going to be able to work that deal out, but it needs to be worked out. And I'm not being equivocal here. It needs to be worked out. Okay, who wants to go next? Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will associate myself with the mayor's comments as well. Before we get into this, I just want to thank MCPS for ordering the fence for Tubman Elementary for the tot lot that is adjacent to my neighborhood, and I have been getting lots and lots and lots of questions about that for the past several months. So I'm really excited that is moving forward. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you all in person for making that happen. I'm excited that we've gotten to this point with Crown High School. I mean, obviously, Crown in general has been evolving over the past several decades, and this has always been that piece at the end of the road, if you will, that is really going to, be one of the finishing touches for this neighborhood. To have a brand new high school here in the city of Gaithersburg. Jasmine did a beautiful job of designing a school that I think will be another crown jewel here in the city of Gaithersburg. And yeah, I know. Or was it? But honestly, it is beautiful. I do share the mayor's concerns over parking. I would love to know, the percentage of students that drive at, the surrounding schools, just even currently, how many are driving to QO or to Whitman or to Gaithersburg, because they're going to want to drive to the new one too if they get moved. And I completely appreciate the talent of the incoming administration to be able to navigate, but it would be wonderful to set them up for success from day one. And we also need to think about, it's not just how this is going to be used during the school day. I expect the mayor and our city attorney and the rest of us to be tailgating for the Crown High School football games as well. And I can see a situation where we have sports fans parking in the neighborhoods or parking in the garages down at downtown Crown and walking to the facility. And I can foresee some challenges if it's not addressed now. So I want to make sure that we're thinking holistically. I have a high school age son who goes to Good Counsel, and I've seen his friends, walking from surrounding neighborhoods. And there's a lot of parking on that campus. So I know it happens. I've seen it happen. So anything that we can do to anticipate getting out in front of that would be really, really helpful. You mentioned 2,219 students will be designed for. I know the boundary study's not been released yet. Is there a target percentage of utilization from day one that MCPS is looking for? Knowing like it's built for 2,200, are we thinking we're going to be fully utilized or 90, or what are we thinking?
So there's always an implementation period with particularly high schools. We won't know what that is, but when it opens, it will not likely include a grade 12. That will transition over time. We've even seen at some high schools where part of grade 11 or all of grade 11 transition in. But the goal would be to bring the school within 90% to 95% utilization from a boundary study perspective. That's a realistic goal in this case, because many of our schools, if you start to add up the capacity, they are certainly able to fill this particular high school. And I think you will see a recommendation of the superintendent's going to go a little bit broader than just the Crown area. So I do think this boundary study process, along dovetailing with the Woodward High School opening boundary study process, is likely to be a bit of a game changer for the county as a whole. This isn't just high schools, this is middle schools that are part of these boundary studies. So when you're talking about 2/3, if not more, of the high schools within the county that are, and the middle schools that are part of a boundary study, it's likely to be very impactful. So utilization is going to be a big part of it, but yes, we will be targeting that 90 to 95% at all schools as we transition through this process.
And I hate to bring this up, but I brought it up during the Tubman discussion, so I'll bring it up here. Should we get to the point that we have overutilized this school, where do the trailers go?
Yeah, so we have, in that case, they will go on the tennis and basketball courts. There's not a lot of space left on the site, so.
Understood, and God willing, we don't get to that point, but obviously the city's growing, the county's growing, just trying to, again, getting out in front of things, like, want to make sure that has at least been thought about.
Just don't block the pickleball court.
Well, 100%.
Do you have any more questions?
I have one more question. You mentioned accessing the top because of the slope. Are there classrooms that do not have windows on that ground level? How is that being addressed if you've got entry on the second level?
So the grade is such that we do have windows on this whole edge right here. We have a lot of the athletic facilities on the lower level, the gym, fitness rooms, locker rooms that don't need natural light. So we've tried to strategically place those rooms in the ground, and we put the instructional spaces along the program.
Great. That's what I was hoping the answer was. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Rob?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And thank you all for being here. And Seth, thank you for always coming and partnering with us on many of these discussions. First off, kudos on the rendering. It's a really cool-looking building. It doesn't even look like a school. I would say it looks better than Google's campus in Mountain View even. I think you've created a skater's paradise with some of those renderings. Let's think about safety issues and attractive nuisances. I do have a Lynn question. I'm going to get all misty-eyed as I ask it because this will be my last Lynn question. I didn't know MCPS had eminent domain authority. Would that come through us, or
No.
do they have independent?
Yeah, they do have independent authority,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. What the lead rating of this building? What will it be?
We're going for green globes on this one, 2 green globes.
It's a new rating system.
Oh, okay.
It's different than
Is that
LEED.
like platinum or gold or?
It's comparable.
Yeah, I think it's pretty comparable.
Okay.
I think, what's the maximum? 4 3 globes? 4 globes,
We're
something like
going for
that.
2.
We're going for 2.
I'd encourage to have a conversation. So this is going to pull something out of the toolbox from a long time ago when we talked about implementing solar in the city. We talked about the feasibility of placing it on rooftops of certain municipal buildings. It just wasn't feasible. You guys are doing new construction. To the extent that we can think about that, as I recall from our last conversation, said this was going to be an innovation high school. That was going to be the curriculum. I hope it still is. I would love to partner with MCPS, think about ways we can bring in the county or even the state to try to fund this, to think about ways to make this, make perhaps solar work on this, make this a net zero campus. That would be pretty cool. I do recall from our prior conversation, there was a discussion that I believe, Seth, you had mentioned you were going to go back to MCPS to talk about innovative ways to utilize fields. And so it looks like you've got all the fields there. So how did that conversation go?
So actually in terms of fields, one of the things as part of our operating budget is we're creating a new division within facilities that's focused on the outdoor environment. We've really struggled with the maintenance of our fields, but we've also struggled with trying to utilize or thinking of innovative ways to utilize all the green space on our spaces. So the board, obviously, the Board of Education is going through that operating budget discussion right now, but it is something that we are taking very seriously. We're also looking, and this may be a little different depending on how our use agreement works out, but we are looking through this new division to be able to open up many more of our high school facilities for community use. Right now, community use at high schools is pretty much limited to an adopt-a-field type of programs. And our goal is to be able to provide, the maintenance and services to these fields so that we can bring as many outside users in. And on top of that, start to use as much of the green space as possible for outdoor learning environments and other features.
I thought that conversation was more along the lines of the MCPS has an archetype for what it needs for a high school, what it needs for middle school, what it needs for elementary school. And that perhaps the conversation, because this is a more urbanized environment, would perhaps not follow that archetype. Do you really need a baseball field and a softball field, for example? So just a thought when I'm looking at that. This looks like a very traditional layout for a high school. Use agreement, very much echo the mayor's comments. It is important to us, and we own the land. Leave it at that. I'd encourage, and I'm sure this is already going on with staff, is safe routes to school. Not only includes the school, but it includes the neighborhoods around it. And so, working with staff, one of the things I brought up, I'm looking at Dennis, is, for example, thinking about ways that we as a city can start putting money where our mouth is with respect to ensuring that we have adequate facilities for pedestrians and multimodal transportation. And that would include around this. And so to the extent that we're not already thinking about it, and again, I'm sure we are thinking about how we can put safety improvements in place where the city would pay for it, but connecting it into the routes that are going ultimately to the school. And parking, I'd actually go the other direction. So this is, in my mind, the first example of a school that we have that exists in, it is close to an urban environment as this city of Gaithersburg is going to get. And so while I think parking is a priority, I would also look to those safe routes to school, making sure bus routes are accommodating the school, improving those kinds of things. I know the county has kind of put a kibosh on mixed modal transportation around this area, like the CCT. Hopefully the what is it, bus forward, I can't remember what they're calling it these days, will provide access that does not involve cars for this site, because this is one of the first urban sites that we've gotten. I've got more notes. I'll stop talking now. Thank you for the presentation. Looks great.
Thanks, Rob. We'll go to Neil.
All right, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you folks for the good work on this. It's very impressive. And, you know, thanks for coming back and doing more for us, because the Tubman School is great. We're very happy, aside from the fence issue, which you're going to fix. But the school itself is terrific and a great asset. And, you know, sorry that you had to go through what we all went through during that process. You know, the developer who first conceptualized having a high school on this site and helped work with us to set the land aside, kind of was hoping that this would be some sort of STEM-focused school. And I know you folks are not the academics department, so, but I'll tell you, I was up for re-election this past year, and I was bragging about the fact that we've got this new school coming, and that we all worked hard to make sure that it was going to happen. And you know, the redistricting thing came up, and some people were very concerned, particularly people in one certain sector that's where the high school starts with a W. You know, so the question is, is MCPS going to do something so that people want to be in this school, as opposed to being afraid to change, right? You know, and I won't talk much longer, but I remember when Lakelands Park was being conceptualized, and everybody said, no, we don't want to leave Ridgeview, and now they don't want to go back to Ridgeview. So hopefully this will be something that attracts people and they want to be there, but what's the strategy to make this redistricting process less painful than some of them have been in the past?
Great question. You know, I would say part of the boundary study process is going to focus heavily on program, access to programs. So looking at schools, not necessarily regionally, but looking at schools from community standpoint, what you know, what makes sense for, what can attract students to those schools. I think one of the challenges that we have is that we've created a lot of, you know, magnets type of programs that, you know, actually start to tax the transportation. They start to tax, you know, what's happening, you know, with even pedestrian or you know, vehicular safety. So we are going to take a deep step back and look at this from a programmatic standpoint, trying to find offerings that make sense at all schools. They may be smaller than what they look like today, but more broad. They may look a little different than what they look like today. I would just say one example we look at quite a bit with Crown and even Gaithersburg High School. You know, one of the things is that, you know, we've talked about Crown, its proximity to you know, biotech and other companies, and how that could fit in with internships and programs. Gaithersburg High School is just a couple miles down the street. So, you know, we don't want to necessarily create this high-tech school and then leave a school like Gaithersburg behind. But what makes sense to revisit at Gaithersburg High? What makes sense to look at Crown, and make sure that all students, regardless of what service area they end up with, have access to the programs that they would need to be successful in not only college but career. So we have designed quite a few engineering type of lab spaces in this building. And quite honestly, we're going to take a step back and look at all of our schools and see how we can expand those types of programs at other schools, and also look at CTE and career tech type of programs at all schools as well. So I can't give you an absolute today, but I can say that we are looking at this from a very broad lens, that we want to make sure that regardless of what service area you're in, as a student, you have access to everything from higher ed, advanced engineering, and you have access to hands-on CTE programs as well. So I encourage everyone to participate in that boundary study process, because the programmatic piece is going to be probably a bigger lift than even just the geographic service area perspective of it.
All right, thanks, Seth. That was a great answer.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. As an aside, I am going to be at Tubman tomorrow morning speaking to the 4th grade. We're going to go to Lisa and then Jamil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. And Seth, thank you for your last comment. You answered one of the questions I was going to ask about programs, and that, we've got one high school in our jurisdiction today, and that the fact that, this is fantastic, and that we're going to bring that program along to balance that out. So that's great. I'm the 5 of 6 kids, and we always think the younger kids got it better, right? So I tell my older brothers and sisters. So we want this new fantastic high school with the excellent programming to bring what we have and play already, bring that along with it. So thank you for making that comment. Question I have is, when do you anticipate, and I'll ask them both together, when do you anticipate the boundary study being complete? Because if with an August 2027 launch date, what's that window? And I'm assuming that the MCPS, Department of Transportation, is, once the boundary is decided, they'll do route studies to determine where these buses are coming from and how to, I don't know if sometimes there's new traffic patterns that are required once we know what those boundaries are and where those buses are coming from, and especially crowding into a mega drive. Does transportation do those studies?
Yes, actually, as we're going through the process, we're looking at a variety of different options. Again, so when you look at a high school service, when you look at a high school boundary, you are impacting middle schools as well, but you stick with the elementary school service area. So we're not redrawing elementary school service areas. You start with that as your base area and then work your way out. So a variety of the options that are developed, the transportation team looks at what that means from a bus perspective. And I'll give you a perfect example. When we went through the Tubman project that involved the boundary study at all elementary schools, we looked at it from a variety of different perspectives, of maximizing walkers to what does it do to bus access. A school like Summit Hall went from, I believe it was in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 buses to no buses because of the service area change and it becoming all walkers. So those are all things that are weighed into the process. Obviously as part of the process, it is to maximize walking to schools. That is a goal of every boundary study. But the transportation part of it is a big part of the analysis. What it means to existing traffic patterns, what it means to travel times, all those types of things as we go through the various options.
Okay, and the boundaries, timing of the boundary study completion?
So that will be part of the Board of Ed's scope. The superintendent will make a recommendation, and the Board of Education will vote on the scope, which also includes the start to finish time frame. What we've been typically recommending is anywhere from a year to a year and a half of a recommendation, and ultimately a vote by the Board of Education, so that there's time for families to begin to process what these changes are, develop ample time for the Crown community to develop. It's going to be a brand new high school, so give it about a year or so of time to start to develop that community. So I would anticipate that probably a year and a half in advance of the school opening is when the first piece of a recommendation or a final vote by the Board of Education would happen.
Okay, thank you.
Jamil.
Excellent. Good evening. Pleasure to meet you as the most recently freshly minted council member. I learn something new every day. attractive nuisance?
That's a Lynn question.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like
I
to
can
think,
provide you case
yeah,
on that.
I like to think that's how my wife describes me sometimes. Question on the field surface. What material, that might have been covered earlier or in other presentations. Do you have, what materials are you considering?
So for the stadium field itself, we are looking at an artificial turf surface. Again, one of the things we look at, back to Councilmember Wu's comment around a smaller facility, as you notice, we don't have practice fields here. So utilizing an artificial turf surface so that we can practice, play, and maximize as many student athletes on campus is going to be an important goal here.
Okay, and I would just echo the mayor and Councilmember Wu's, and I think the rest of us, in terms of an interest for that perpetual use, shared use agreement. And then when you started your remarks, you mentioned on the CIP that the county executive put forward with 350 or 350 in reductions. Last I read it, it did not include Crown. Were you breaking new news tonight, or?
No, so we're a little in advance of our Board of Education meeting, but as part of that process, the County Council asked the Board of Education for what they call non-recommended reductions, which is basically how do you align the capital improvements program to the county executive's budget. The Crown High School project is not included in that from any delay or budget cuts, but I bring it up because it is a very tight budget. So if there are budget overages or there's challenges with bringing this project into bid, there's not a lot of flex room in the county in terms of being able to supplement this project. But as of today, this transmittal that went to the council president last week did not include a delay to the Crown High School project.
Thank you.
Jim, your one follow-up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, as far as the artificial turf, would very much love to see you, MCPS, use the organic artificial turf that we've used at our fields. I know there's been a lot of discussion about what MCPS has used in other fields, and we've had great success with it. I think that's what we have at Tubman as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just would love to put that out there as a suggestion with a little nudging behind it.
That's actually a county council requirement for organic infill. So we're replacing the last of the non-organic infills this summer, which include Gaithersburg High School. So that will become a organic infill once that's replaced as well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Appreciate you guys very much. Look forward to getting the deal done. And we're so excited. We're super excited about this project. The designs look great. And thank you. Thanks for your partnership.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Agreed.
All right. Next, we're going to move on to public comments. This is the time the mayor and council want to hear from anybody who'd like to speak on a city topic. It's not a public hearing topic, and tonight we have no public hearing, so that's easy. We ask that you state your name and address or neighborhood if you prefer. For the record, keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If you have more than 3 minutes worth of material to deliver, by all means, use your 3 minutes and send us the rest in writing. We'll consider it just the same as oral testimony. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak tonight? Come on up. And thank you for your patience. We've had some meaty presentations tonight.
I'm Michelle Rubenstein. That's one L. And Rubinstein. I'm the president of the Colonnade Community Association. And I'd like to talk about the CCOC. When I first moved to the Colonnade, I thought the CCOC would be great because our developer really had issues. He followed none of the Condo Act, none of the bylaws, none of anything. When we got into, as we in the city of Gaithersburg got into the CCOC in 2021, the Colonnade has seen nothing but issues with the CCOC. We started out with 2 of our owners submitting claims to the CCOC that predated our getting into the CCOC. It took the CCOC 9 months to listen to the Attorney General, I think, for Montgomery County, to realize that they predated our entry into the CCOC. 9 months of legal fees, 9 months of mediation, 9 months of going back and forth with our legal team. So 9 months of fees from the legal side for our owners. It come to find out that we've had 2 years of missed billing from the CCOC, where I reached out to Kevin Roman and to Mayor Ashman to try to get this resolved. We finally have it resolved. I don't know yet if we've gotten the refunds from the CCOC. We got Roman involved as well, and I do appreciate that. We have had issues like communication issues. You find out if things have been looked at, filed, anything like that, and just trying to communicate with the CCOC has been problematic from the word go. They have bullied the board to say that we are bullies, and we're not. Some of the people that are on the CCOC commission are more interested in bullying the board than they are in actually getting to a resolution. And the board takes a bad rap on a lot of occasions because I call them my problem children owners. Think that everybody is against them, whether it's for elections or this or that. They think that the board is against them. We're not. We follow the laws of the state of Maryland and the Condo Act. We follow our bylaws. Whether they like them or not is a different story. And the CCOC has to be able to look at both sides of that. And sometimes I believe that they look at the owner side, thinking that the board is bullying the owners, and the CCOC bullies the boards. And we have spent months and hours of legal bills responding to these owners. And I think that the CCOC needs to look at processes and auditing and provide metrics to all of you. And I'm glad that you asked for those. And the training, I took the training. It was nothing more than pretty much going through the Condo Act. So I thank you for listening to me at this point.
Thank you, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
Anything more, please send us in writing, and we appreciate it. Are there any other testimonies here tonight? If not, I'm going to look at our Zoom audience. Yeah, come on up, David.
All right. Good evening. Nice to see y'all. David Mullins, Gateway Apartments. I'm also a tenant representative on the Landlord Tenant Commission, but as usual, I'm just speaking in my private capacity as a Gateway resident. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I've appreciated since the state legislature was in session that there have been periodic updates from y'all, or you've brought people in to give updates. That's been nice. Today was an exciting day in the Environment and Transportation Committee of the House, so I just wanted to mention, especially for renters, because the governor was there, who I saw was here recently too, talking about his housing bills that he brought in. And especially, I think, exciting for renters would be HB 693, which would create an Office of the Tenant Advocate for the state of Maryland. It would increase our failure to pay rent eviction filing fee, which is the lowest in the nation, probably why our eviction rate is the highest in the nation. Things that are out of this council's control, I know, but just worth mentioning for the renter community. But then more connected to this council is what my family, and my neighbors are most interested in, which is Delegate Janelle Wilkins' good cause local enabling, good cause eviction local enabling bill. I think it's HB 477. And I bring that up because the local enabling part would involve this body, if God willing it were to pass this year, as it would enable counties and municipalities to decide whether they wanted to put in good cause eviction protections. And my wife went down to testify about this again because we see too many of our neighbors that just receive a non-renewal notice without an explanation, which is perfectly legal right now. And I'm really glad that the school boundaries came up, because the reason my wife goes down there is because Thurgood Marshall, where my son's in second grade, it's a sea of single-family homes there, and then there's the island of Gateway that is bussed in. Which I think is great for many reasons, socioeconomic diversity, all kinds of stuff. But that also means that if we got a non-renewal notice, I can't, buy a home right now. So there's no other apartments there. It means that everybody that in our complex, almost 800 units, that has small children and receives one of these notices has to change schools. And I think it was implied that when they start at the elementary, they're trying to not have kids have to change schools, right, when they're rebounding there. So, look, it's a very important thing for me and our neighbors, and I just wanted to, mention it for y'all and the public, and look forward to further engagement on that. If, again, God willing, it makes it farther. It hasn't in the past, but now Commissioner Barvey is no longer on the committee. I think he was opposed, so I'm cautiously optimistic on that one. And I think that was it. That's all I was going to say, except I think there was a allusion to Wooten earlier, was it? I don't know if that's what was. I seen the Sawyer Flat sign. I went to Wooten. It was a great school. I graduated with Eric Ludke, who was there with the governor today. Good school, but I'd be happy for my kids to go to Gaithersburg or the new one. So, just throwing that out there. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, David. Anyone else in the audience want to testify? Not seeing anybody. Okay, let me check Zoom. If you're on Zoom and want to testify, use the raise hand feature, and I will call on you. Okay, not seeing any hands go up. We thank everyone who testified and everyone who stayed to listen to testimonies. We appreciate that as well. Next on our agenda is from the mayor and city council, and we are going to start with Councilmember Rob Wu.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I always like going first because I don't get to just ditto everybody else. Yeah, I really don't have much to talk about, and I really don't drone on about things like, anyway. But
like what? I don't even know what he's referring to.
It's okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. But I will take the time here to say a little bit about Lynn on her last official day as a city employee, soon to be a contractor.
Not last official day, let's just be clear.
Or last meeting.
Last meeting.
Mayor and council meeting.
Okay.
I'm a contractor too. So.
29
not here.
29 days in this.
Yes. Okay, 29, yes. Lynn, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. I think that, being an attorney myself and in my own self-esteem, being an excellent attorney who's worked in a lot of different offices and different environments, having the ability to recognize when you've got exemplary counsel is I think very important. And I'll say you are an exemplary counsel in the way that you do things, in particular in the way that you serve as kind of that guiding light, which I think is a hallmark of good counsel. You weren't overbearing on things. You kind of just made sure that we stayed the course. And I've racked my brain. I cannot think of an occasion where you've provided public counsel or individual counsel to me where you've been wrong. And sometimes I've been wrong, and I'm loath to even admit that, but you've steered me in the right direction. So you will be missed, but best wishes in what ultimately would come next. I know you'll still be with us for a little while in your other capacity, I guess. But just understand. I think all of us will express the sentiment of how unique you've been in your role here, and it's been very appreciated.
Well done.
That's all I got.
Okay, we'll go to Neil.
Well, I could just say ditto. But seriously, it's just so for Lynn, it has been a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you for the next 29 days and beyond. Coming in as not being a lawyer, and over the 9 years plus that I've been here, you've been able to explain things to me that otherwise made no sense at all. So I appreciate that very much. It's been quite an education, and the mayor left one thing out when he went through the list of all the wonderful things you help us with. He didn't talk about the work you've done on elections, which has been really, it's been great for us as candidates and for the electoral system in Gaithersburg. So that's much appreciated too. So moving on, because I want to talk about transportation a little bit. There is a bill that Ryan Spiegel has sponsored, and now Nancy King has cross-filed it in the Senate. House Bill 924 there'll be a hearing on it on March the 1st. The bill basically enables different regions in the state to set up districts where they collect money and use it to improve transportation and reduce congestion. We decided as we were putting the bill together that we left out how we're going to fund it, because I think there's many different options. We're looking at, the template is based on a program that Northern Virginia has in place that's very effective, but some of the revenue generation mechanisms they have are probably not appropriate for us. So this is going to be a multi-year process, and hopefully while I'm still alive, we'll actually get to the finish line and make things going. I'm not going anywhere, but someday maybe.
Are you planning to go testify on March 1st?
Yes, I am. And we've had some discussions about, who's testifying. I think somebody from Virginia is going to come and testify about how their system works. And we have people from Frederick and Baltimore and Southern Maryland who are lined up as well. So we're going to try not to overwhelm them, and we're going to try not to say the same thing over and over again. And of course, it's open to the public. So
I'm going to be in Annapolis that day, so I may come just to be in support.
Well, I may drag you into some of our planning meetings then. So anyway, it's a story to be continued. And finally, I'd like to thank my friend Bernie Locascio and his wife Jennifer for lending him to us for this, not just for the Transportation Committee, but at the next Transportation Planning Board meeting, we'll be appointing Bernie to the Citizens Advisory Committee for the region. And I know the staff who interviewed you were very impressed and are looking forward to working with you. So thanks for stepping up. I know you were looking for stuff to do in your retirement. So
That's my volunteer opportunities.
It's all much appreciated. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Good.
Thanks, Neil. Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to Lynn to say thank you. Even during my candidacy, it was my first time ever running, and kind of freaked out that I've got to reach out to the city attorney. What? And you were so kind and so responsive and so helpful, and I really appreciated it. And then to get elected and come on and see it's just who you are. My first MML, the day was crazy. It's like drinking through a fire hose. You're learning everything all at once, and I felt like a really grown-up elected official. And that night, I got to sit with you and your friend, and we just talked about life and laughed, and you guys told the funniest stories, and I appreciated that so much. It was the icing on the cake for the camaraderie that is this mayor and council and staff, and I so appreciated that night. And then to find out that you're a Commanders fan, I mean, of course, absolutely, of course. So you're my first municipal attorney, but I've worked with other attorneys. I work with attorneys currently in my work life and my personal life, and bar none, Lynn, none as effective and quick and responsive as you. So thank you. And thank you for always explaining the law in a way that is digestible and I can understand and can make decisions because I really understand what I'm talking about. Also, you help us get into good trouble with these amicus briefs. So thank you for bringing those to us. But anytime I see them and how awesome that the city of Gaithersburg is going to be a part of such big legislation, and that you bring those to us. So thank you for the good trouble also, and keeping us out of bad trouble. You will absolutely be missed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. We'll go to Jim.
Thank you, Mayor, and that's going to be a little difficult to follow, but I'm going to try and throw my my ditto behind that as well. Early in my career, I was a legal secretary. I worked at a large law firm in Philadelphia, and I've been around a lot of attorneys. But I want to echo what Lisa said. From the first time you and I ever interacted, you always put me at ease, and you always put other people at ease. You know, we talk a lot about, in the city of Gaithersburg, living our values. And the law can be cold, and it can be harsh, and it can be cruel. What I've always marveled at is your ability to show compassion and guide us in a way to stay within our guardrails, but still live our values. And I think that's reflected in our ordinances. I think it's reflected in the way that your team operates. And I think, you know, that culture permeates our ordinances. It permeates how we go about doing that. And I think that's a big part into the way that you interpret the law. And you give us that guidance to be able to do what we need to do. And that's a reflection of who you are. You know, other people in that chair, I don't think we're going to have that same result. And I know I'm finding it hard as we are getting to try and fill the position. I'm not even going to say replace you, because I don't know that we can. All of the different roles that you have fulfilled between elections and litigation and ordinances and MML and all of these things, you know, the way that you are perceived within the city, not just electeds, not just staff, but the community, and the rest of the state is well earned, because your reputation precedes you as a professional and as a human being. I'm going to miss you. I've only gotten to be your colleague for 2 years, but thank you for making me feel safe in this role, to know that I can do what I needed to do because I had you behind me telling me that I was on the right path. I'm going to miss that, so thank you. I had a bunch of things that I did, but it's going to be difficult to change gears, so I will just say that I want to thank the Cultural Arts Advisory Committee. That we had a meeting this week, and the team, the volunteer team, reviewed our cultural arts master plan and the 11 goals and objectives, and I'm happy to say that they all agreed that we're on the right path. So kudos to them, and thank you for all that. And finally, I said it on Facebook, but I'll make it official from the dais. Happy belated birthday to Council Member Emeritus Mike Sesma, whose birthday was on Sunday. So,
thank you, Jim. Jamil.
Excellent. I associate myself with all those wonderful, flowery sounds like a bad way to describe them, but very, very, very thoughtful words. I'll just give some practical feedback. I've hired, in my private professional career, litigation attorneys, patent, trademark, contracts, and just going, employment, and you're singularly talented in being able to, give unequivocal, sort of not like resuscitation of, well, you could do this or this, stuff that typical attorneys do, which is a waste as a non-attorney. So I really appreciate that. And during the 2 campaigns, oftentimes you walk me off, not walk me off ledges, what's the reverse?
It may have been
figuratively walked you off.
Yeah.
Right. And just with very sound, calming, practical, actionable advice. And that's, I will miss that. That was very, very helpful for a young candidate and a freshly minted council member. So I will really, really miss it. I really appreciate all the advice you've given and helped us in that. In terms of things, we attended with Councilmember Henderson and the mayor, the Maryland Municipal League local chapter, where the county executive gave him an overview of transportation district options and as well as budget issues. So Neil, I think you would be proud to hear a lot of support for this from the county executive. And we had, I think, our 3rd or 4th Environmental Affairs Committee, which with a lot of good stuff going on there. So it's interesting to attend and participate. I now have a habit, I'm driving staff crazy a little bit, so I hope they don't mind. Every time I go to a trade show or a convention and I see new environmental, like they're doing sustainability practice, I take pictures and send and engage with them. So learning a lot from them. So that's it for me.
That's great, thank you. Lynn, sorry for the omission about elections. I was there in spirit too, but I covered a lot of ground. So
I was just grateful that you left something for me to say.
Fair enough. I associate myself with all these very eloquent, heartfelt remarks about Lynn, and I said my piece, so I'm not going to belabor that. I'll just tell everyone to remind everybody that May 18th is the book festival, so put it on your calendar. And find out all. We have a bunch of authors listed on the website already at GaithersburgBookFestival.org. Join us next week for a work session with the Planning Commission to discuss Retool Gaithersburg, the city's comprehensive update to our zoning ordinance. So that's Monday, February 26th, and the next regular meeting will be on Monday, March 4th. Next, we have from the city manager, Tanisha.
Thank you, Mayor Ashman. I'll just use my time to also thank Lynn for her service to the city. We've swapped a lot of, I think, war stories from previous communities with each other over time, but I think, the human brain is predisposed for the negative. We've had some commiseration there, but there's so much. One of the beautiful things about local government, you can look outside your window and see everything that you've contributed to and how it lives on, and there's your legacy. And it's not automatic though, right? Sometimes I think about it as local government is sort of a fraternity and we all get rights to that legacy piece, but it's not automatic. You actually have to be effective. You have to be good at what you do and care about what you do, care about the people you do it with. And you embody all of those qualities, and I think that's why you can be very proud of the legacy that you're leaving. I've enjoyed our partnership. I think that I've not worked in this structure before, where we're both employees of the council. In other places, the city attorney reported directly to me, and I wasn't concerned about that because our very first interaction was over my contract negotiation, and even that I thought was pleasant. So I had good feelings coming to the community, and you've been able to reaffirm that throughout my entire time with you. I'm sad that it's this short, but glad that you are still a friend of the city. And I know that if we absolutely need to find you, I can find you at a football game and get some free advice, maybe, right? I'll miss some vegetables though.
Yeah. I'll drop some off.
Okay. All right. Gonna miss some vegetables. But you've been through a lot. We've talked about the span of a career just in this community. Obviously, you've had a much longer career than that. But son growing up, and all of life's changes, some ups, some downs. You've done that all here. Staff has changed, some has stayed the same, but I think what will be forever is your contributions to the organization and this community. So thank you. You're welcome.
All right, beautiful. Lynn, there will always be the YouTube of this meeting. I hope you watch it often. Okay, Tom Lonergan-Seeger has let it be known that he's going to yield his time for economic development updates, so we'll look forward to that at our next meeting. Next, I'm going to call up Sean Stevens and thank him ahead of time for his patience, for having waited us out. We have a resolution to amend a contract for upfitting police vehicles.
Move approval.
Good evening. Before I get started, Lynn, on behalf of Public Works, we appreciate you, we appreciate your office, and we're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The resolution I bring before you tonight is to authorize the city manager to amend the contract for upfitting police vehicles with emergency equipment. The city's current police upfitting contract with Frontline Mobile Tech LLC currently is in the final term of the contract and is set to expire June 30th, 2024. The current contract has an annual not to exceed of $98,193. On May 15th, 2023, the Mayor and Council, by way of Resolution R22-23, approved an increase to the not to exceed amount to $167,000 for fiscal years 24 through 28. This amount was not enough to cover the total vehicles ordered in FY24. In FY24, the city ordered 16 new police vehicles. 10 of these vehicles were scheduled replacements for FY24. 4 were
mid-year new additions to the fleet, and 2 were to replace vehicles that were involved in accidents and deemed totaled. City staff have obtained quotes from Frontline Mobile Tech for the upfitting of these new police vehicles totaling $292,734. These costs require increasing our annual not-to-exceed amount in the current contract from $98,193 to $292,734. Staff recommends authorizing the city manager to amend the existing contract with Frontline Mobile Tech LLC and increasing the annual not-to-exceed amount from $98,193 to $292,734, and the addition of 2 additional optional 1-year extensions with a new expiration date of June 30th, 2026. There are sufficient funds in the FY24 Asset Replacement Fund. Do you have any questions for me?
Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Sean, so what happened between the time we approved this and now? Was it we ordered more vehicles, or did the prices change?
When Brian Helms came for the resolution last May, we were forecasted to be ordering 10 new police cars in FY24. After that resolution was approved, approving an increase of not to exceed amount, 4 more cars were added mid-year, and then 2 additional cars were wrecked. So we had to increase to a total of 16 cars from 10.
Very good.
Some of this will be offset with the county money?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, would someone like to move the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Now, Sean, you're going to talk about Lakelands Park Playground.
Yes. The resolution I bring before you tonight is to authorize the city manager to negotiate and enter into a contract for Lakelands Park Playground design and equipment replacement. The playground equipment at Lakelands Park is 20 years old and has reached the end of its useful service life. Due to its age, condition, and safety considerations, it was scheduled for replacement in the FY24 budget. Public Works staff wishes to utilize Sourcewell contract 010521-LTS with Play Power Incorporated for playground design, equipment purchase, and installation at Lakelands Park, located at 1368 Main Street, Gaithersburg, Maryland 20878. Staff obtained 4 different proposals from local playground installers with whom were authorized dealers for Play Power Incorporated. After multiple revisions, a review committee consisting of city staff graded all the proposals and determined it was in the best interest of the city to select Playground Specialist Incorporated Design Number 3. The committee recommends contract award to Playground Specialist Option 3 Revision 2, utilizing Sourcewell contract with Play Power Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $275,000. Playground Specialist possesses extensive experience designing and installing playgrounds throughout the state of Maryland. They have installed playgrounds for the city of Gettysburg previously, and we have always been satisfied with working with them. Playground Specialists included extra discounts to the city on top of the standard discounts from the Sourcewell contract in hopes of gaining the work with us. Staff recommends authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into the contract with Playground Specialists Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $275,000 for Lakelands Park Playground replacement. There are sufficient funds in the Asset Replacement Fund. Do you have any questions for me?
I mean, the estimate is 10 cents less than the budget amount. They better be sure.
What we've done is we always do with our playgrounds is we give them our budget. And then it's up to them to provide us with the most value and the best equipment and design the best program, the best playground that they can for us.
I see.
Because it becomes very difficult to get apples to apples bids when they're coming in all over the spectrum.
That's a good point. Neil?
So, given the proximity of my home to this playground, I'm very familiar with it, although my son is 17 now, so we don't really go there. But it's always been terrific. There's really a lot of equipment, and kids have a good time. Is the new setup going to be comparable?
There's going to be some changes. It was dedicated as Billy's Playground 20 years ago when it was opened. It's going to remain Billy's Playground. Staff has not been able to contact the family of Billy. So from what I've understood, the mother has passed away, and we just haven't been able to, but we are going to maintain Billy's Playground on that end. There's going to be some elevation changes, whereas right now, if you're familiar with the playground, it's kind of sunken down, and there's retaining walls all the way around the playground. We're going to raise that level up, so the elevation's going to be a bit higher out there.
Okay, but in terms of the actual play equipment, I mean, there's a
Be
lot
nice.
of equipment there.
It's gonna be nicer than it is now. It's gonna be very nice.
All right, I'll look forward to it. I may give it a try out myself.
Rob Wu.
Yeah, just a question about, why do we limit the end item to Play Power Inc.? We're utilizing resellers of them. What about other manufacturers of playground equipment?
We like the equipment, and a lot of the equipment we use is Play Power throughout the city. And the pricing we found in this contract with Sourcewell we just can't compete with the pricing that's in. We can't get better pricing.
Okay, so the Play Power Inc. pricing is better than ABC Corp's playground equipment. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is we use Play Power, a lot of Play Power equipment throughout the city. So a lot of times, while the colors may be different, some of the pieces are the same. So in terms of stocking, making repairs, things like that, it's easier to maintain one brand of playground equipment, even though there's much different designs, but we're still utilizing the same manufacturer. So a lot of the parts are interchangeable.
Okay, so there's interchangeability between the equipment purchased here and other park playgrounds throughout. Okay. That makes sense. I get a little wary when I see essentially brand name acquisitions, and so I don't know, to the extent there's the possibility of future market research to see what other manufacturers value what they would bring, and maybe they are the best value, but okay. Anywho.
You want to move the resolution?
Sure, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 5-0. Thank you, Sean. From the city attorney.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point tonight, but I do just want to thank everybody for their very kind comments tonight. I am very happy to say that all my stories about crazy things that happen in municipal government don't come out of Gaithersburg. They come out of other jurisdictions I worked for. And I know Tanisha's laughing at that because I think that's her experience as well. But you will see me around, so.
Awesome. Anything from any other staff? Okay, well, let me go back to our upcoming sessions. So I will remind everyone that we have our work session next Monday, February 26th, to discuss the zoning ordinance, retool Gaithersburg, and the next regular meeting of the mayor and council will be on Monday, March 4th. Until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.